There we go. Yeah.
Thank you.
I did, when you said that, I noticed it says recording paused, so.
Yeah.
Well, Natasha, I look forward to getting to meet you in person one day soon.
I didn't realize I've been on mute this whole time. I didn't know. I look forward to meeting you in person as well. I'm glad I get to virtually meet you though, too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is from 10 to 12, right?
Yes, we've slotted it for that time, but it's just however many minutes you want to do, pretty much.
Gotcha. Okay.
Every class that we've done for 2 hours have kind of varied. Some take up the full time, some are like an hour and a half, some are just an hour.
Gotcha. Okay.
So completely up to you.
Well, we'll see how folks trickle in and how the conversation goes.
Yes.
Sometimes the engagement determines.
Yes. Very true.
Yeah.
George keeps popping in and out.
Oh, okay.
Natasha, this is Laura. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I may have to drop off before the class is over. I've got a lot of calls going on this morning, so I'm trying to at least check in on as many as I can today.
Oh, awesome. Well, we're glad you joined us at all. And it is going to be recorded. So I'll also post that recording to our YouTube channel if you want to catch up on what you missed.
Okay, that'll be great. That'll be great. I really needed to pick some of this up. I'm going to the table in end of June, hopefully for the first time.
Yeah.
So I want to make
Wow.
sure I got everything together.
Right. Congratulations. That's so exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And good morning to everybody on here.
Natasha, we can give it a couple more minutes and see if, who else trickles in if you like, and then we can get started.
Yeah, like I said, it's usually like the first, I feel like 15 minutes are people continuously trickling, so we won't wait that long to start, but we'll
Yeah.
give it a few more minutes.
Okay.
Hi, Jack. Good
How you
morning.
doing? Good, hope you are.
Thank you. I am. We can go ahead and get started if you want, and just whenever they show up, they come in at that time.
Sure, that sounds great to me.
Good morning, everybody. Quiet crowd today.
Good morning.
Yes. I was going to say, let's see. So quiet crowd, and did we lose Jack? Oh no, Jack's still there. Okay.
We lost George, and he's been in and out, so he might be having some connection issues or something.
So we're going to have a quiet crowd, and we're also going to have a no-show crowd in terms of I don't get to see your beautiful faces. Is that what looks like where we're headed?
Yep.
All right, very good. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Leah Cole, and I'm going to spend the next hour and a half, maybe 2 hours with you and talk about the closing process and post-closing follow-up. I wanted to take a brief poll, and this is just for my information to get an idea of how many of you, I know someone just mentioned that they have their first closing coming up. Have any of you actually gone through the closing process yet? And no. So perhaps hit your reactions button down at the bottom of your screen and give me a thumbs up if you have had a closing. And I'm just gauging, perfect, just to see where we are with that. So good. I'm sorry, I thought someone was saying something to me. I'll tell you, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time telling you about who I am. I'll tell you briefly that I've been in this business for a long time. It'll be 26 years in June, and I'll celebrate 12 years with Keller Williams in June also. I'm a licensed instructor in North Carolina and Georgia. I'm licensed in both North Carolina and Georgia. I started my real estate career in the Atlanta area, and I'm actually, I'll use the word practicing kind of in both markets right now. And I want to start this off this morning. I like to start my classes off often with a quote. And my quote this morning comes from Nick Saban. I'm a proud alum of the University of Alabama Roll Tide. And it is, know what you want to accomplish and focus on the process rather than the outcome. And I thought that that'd be a good quote to start this day for, that's a good thing to remember just in this real estate business. I think most of you are in the beginning stages of your real estate career. So it's important to remember to focus on the process rather than the outcome. Sometimes if we're only focused on the outcome, it causes us to kind of get in a tizzy. Sometimes our emotions get out of check and things may get wonky. And one of the things that you may hear me say multiple times this morning with regard to the closing process is it's important to keep your emotions between the lines. So you as the real estate professional, so we know that a real estate transaction from start to finish can be a pretty emotional time. And when we get to the closing process, sometimes those emotions are heightened, especially in today's market. I just mentioned to you, I've been in this business for a long time and I have never seen a market like this. I call it the Wild Wild West because I'm seeing some things that I've never seen before. I've seen agents behave in ways that I haven't seen before, as well as buyers and sellers. So it's important for us as the professional to keep that in check and to help keep our clients and everybody else that's involved in the transaction in line. So this morning, we're going to just look at the basics of the closing process. We're going to talk about best practices for the closing process. And then we're also going to spend a little bit of time on successful post-closing. So what do you do after you've actually got the transaction closed? So I am going to share my screen. Can you all see that? Can you see that pretty well? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Just
It's tiny.
Is it tiny? Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, very good. So we know that we're starting here at the process where we've actually got that puppy under contract, which in today's climate is no small feat, right? Have any of you seen the meme floating around on Facebook that says Mark safe from having multiple offers decline? How many of you have spent time writing, what feels like hundreds and hundreds of offers for a buyer because you're in multiple offer situations? And then when you finally get that, find the one where your client gets under contract, that's a great feeling today, right? One of the ladies mentioned, I think it was Laura, you have a closing coming up in the next couple of months, right?
Yes, ma'am. I should. Hopefully we'll get to the table the end of June, first part of July. It's a new construction.
Okay. So maybe that
it was still a struggle. It was still a struggle.
Okay. I think I'm hearing from agents that whether it's new construction or resale, it's a struggle. I hear it a little bit less from new construction, but I am hearing that as well. And congratulations on making that happen, and look forward for a successful closing for you and your clients. So the graphic that I've shared on my screen basically is sharing with us what happens, after we go under contract. And there's a little bit of difference in terms of what happens when you're working with the buyer and working with the seller. Most of the, it's heavier on the buyer side than it is on the seller side in terms of items that have to be have to be addressed. So with the closing process, you're going to have a lot of steps that are involved to get you to a smooth and successful closing. There are a lot of details that have to be attended to, and there are a lot of people that are involved. So I would encourage you to think of yourself as a project manager when you get to the closing process, and you want to make sure that everybody knows their role and what their commitments are, and making sure that everybody sticks with the timelines and gets those and accomplishes or gets their commitments met, and that they are taking care of the details that they need to take care of. Our goal here is to have, we want to close on time, and we want that process to be smooth. And while all of this is going on, for you to deliver exceptional service so that you can win new business, right? So once we go under contract, you see at the top, it says clear title. Now, I'll just ask for a little bit of engagement from you guys. Who does the title work? Is anybody going to talk to me this morning? Is it just going to be me and Natasha?
It's the lawyer, right?
Yes, that's right. It's the lawyer. Thank you.
All right.
Is that George?
Yes, it is.
All right. I appreciate you.
I hope
No
not.
problem.
I hope there's a lot of people that are talking to you because if they get this information, that avoid them calling me or Jessica.
Makes sense.
Sharon has spoken, guys. Y'all heard that, right?
Loud and clear.
Yes. So one of the first calls that you're going to make is to, and so the closing attorney, the attorney does the title work. Who selects the attorney?
The buyer?
The buyer, yes. And who does the buyer often rely on for a recommendation? Have you ever worked with a buyer who knew exactly who they wanted the closing attorney to be?
No, they usually depend on the agent to give
They-
some sort
Absolutely.
of reference. Yeah.
They depend on you, the agent, for reference. As a matter of fact, one of the tips that I'll give you, it's a good practice for you to have a list of vendors so that you can be the go-to resource for your client, because most of the vendors that are associated with the real estate transaction, we're dealing with them on a daily basis because that's what we do. Our buyers and sellers are dealing with them most cases every few years or every several years. So they're going to rely heavily on you for that. So it's a good idea for you to be in relationship with these folks, have more than one vendor for each area of the transaction that you can recommend, and also vet these folks so that you know who we're doing business with, because that impacts your business. Because if you're making that recommendation, if something goes left, whose fault is it going to be? Who are they going to blame?
They're going to blame you, the agent.
They're going to blame you, the agent, because you're the one who is hopefully in constant contact with them, right? So the buyer is going to, the buyer selects with the assistance of you, the agent, the closing attorney. The closing attorney is going to do the title work, make sure that there's clear title so that the seller can convey that property to the buyer. Meanwhile, there's something else that's really important that is going on with the buyer's side of the transaction, is that is the loan, if they're getting one. So you want to make sure, so let's talk about this for a second. One of the things in the loan process, you want to know who the players are. So remember I mentioned that there are many people who are going to be involved in the transaction. So who are the players? Of course, you have the buyer and the seller. You're involved. You've got the agent on the other side of the transaction, lender, if that buyer, as I said, is getting a loan. We've already talked about the closing attorney. Here's a big one. Family and friends of the buyer. Now, we say know who the players are. Sometimes you may have family and friends of the buyer who are actually making a contribution to this transaction, maybe in the form of gift funds for that buyer. Sometimes, and more often than that, you're going to have family and friends of the buyer who their only contribution is their opinion. Yeah. So we have to be able to manage that as we go throughout the transaction, because even though they're not a party to the sale, they're in there, right? Sometimes much to our chagrin. Who are some of the other players? Sharon shaking her head because she's saying, yep, been there, done that. Bought the t-shirt and the coffee mug, right? Members of your team. Maybe some of us aren't quite to this point in our businesses yet, but maybe someone who's assisting you, a transaction coordinator, or some other administrative help on your team. Perhaps there's a third party involved, such as a reload company, or maybe it's an estate sale. Then you're going to have additional people who are involved in this transaction. Also your market center staff. Now, you're going to be working really closely with your BIC, especially on your first few transactions, to make sure that you are on the right side of your BIC and also of the real estate commission. Or there may be a transaction coordinator in your market center, not yours personally. Your MCA. Now, your MCA may not be, that's just going to be on the company side, and they're going to help make sure you get paid, right? Anyone else that you think of that I haven't mentioned who may be a player in this game? I think I've covered it. Sharon, not to put you on the spot, did I miss anybody in the transaction?
No, no, you pretty much covered mostly everybody that's gonna have a say, even if they don't have a financial shot in the game, they're gonna have something to say. So yes, I think we got everybody.
Good. Wonderful. So it's important, as I said, to know who the players are. Make sure that all parties who are involved keep their commitments. If anybody's taking notes, a couple things that I want you to write down. I want you to write it down, highlight it, circle it, star it, underline it. I already mentioned a big one, and that is to keep your emotions between the lines, because you got to keep everybody else right here, okay? And then here's another one. You can never over communicate throughout the transaction. So you've got to be in constant contact, not only with your client, with the all the players that we just talked about, the agent on the other side of the transaction, the lender, to make sure that those timelines are being met. If you're representing the buyer, you got to make sure that, your buyer is turning in all their docs, that they're doing everything they need to do to keep that loan process on track and moving on time. So keep your emotions between the lines and over communicate with everybody that's involved. So here's another one that I want you to write down since we're taking notes. Checklists are your best friend. At any point in your transaction, so your checklist is going to make sure that you are staying within the timelines for the contract, such as your due diligence period, making sure that everything that needs to happen prior to expiration of due diligence is happening, because you got to protect your client, right? So I've already given you 3 nuggets. I'm gonna pause right here for just a second. And oftentimes when I teach classes, I started this years ago, and I called them Leah's keys to being a rock star real estate agent. And I've kind of added to that list a little bit over the last couple of years. The number 1 is to know and understand agency, because that will help keep you out of trouble. That defines what you can and cannot do for your client. if it is your client or, if it's not. So know and understand agency. And Sharon's really gonna, in addition to that, Sharon's really gonna appreciate this one. Know and understand your forms. You gotta know those so that you can utilize them properly, so that you can explain them to your client or customer. Now, years ago, I was teaching a post-licensing class, and I chuckle every time I have this memory. One of the agents in that class, also, I happened to be this agent's BIC at the time, but we were reviewing the contracts, and we were doing a role play exercise, and I asked the class, how do you present this to your client? You don't have to read it to them, but you do need to be able to summarize the form and answer questions if they have any questions about it, right? And this particular agent said, as quickly as possible, sign here and initial there. Yes, Natasha's eyes are going, really? Yes, really. And if you knew this agent, you would say, yeah, really, that happened. So know your forms. No, and Sharon actually knows this agent. I'll tell her offline who this agent, I'll remind her offline who this agent is. And the third key is to know and employ, and we're all realtors here, know and employ the 17 articles of the Code of Ethics. Yes. Yay. And I know that Sharon's making sure that everybody is up to date on that requirement, making sure that you're up to date on that. So back to the closing transaction, and those little nuggets that y'all took away. Making sure that everybody is staying on the timeline. Write this down too. You be the problem solver. Remember, you're the project manager. You are the one who's keeping all the balls in the air. Be the go-to source, okay? Now, I'm gonna keep this graphic on the screen for a second, but I'm gonna shift just a little bit. I told you that, or I mentioned that we want to close on time. We want this to be a smooth process, and we want to deliver exceptional service in the process so that we can win new business. Now, let's talk for a minute about how we're going to ensure that we meet these goals, okay? Now, this is the part where I'm gonna need for y'all to talk back to me, okay? We're going to do a little mini mastermind here, and we're gonna talk about how can we make this happen? So I'm gonna kick it off, and one of the ways that we can make sure that we meet these goals is to be organized. Be organized, have your systems in place, your checklist. Remember I said checklists are your best friends? What are some other things that we can do to make sure that we have a smooth process and that we close on time?
You said this before, but communication.
Yes.
Over communication.
Over communication. We just can't do it too much. Thank you very much. Yeah. What else?
Keep following up.
Keep following up. Yes, we want to make sure, what are we following up on? What are some of the details that we're following up on?
Well, we're following up on the actual process, the attorneys, everyone involved basically on the actual closing.
That's
You
right.
gotta follow up with them and make sure that if they have any questions, you will be available for them.
Absolutely. You're available. You're the go-to resource. You're the problem solver, right?
Right.
You are the manager of this. So you're staying in constant contact with the closing attorney, making sure that they have everything that they need from the buyer and the seller, staying in touch with or following up with the lender to make sure that, and this is following up with the lender to make sure that those timelines are being met. Following up with your client to make sure that not only Are they taking care of their loan? Have they contacted their insurance provider to make sure that they have that in place? Because we know that we've got to have that 1-year binder in place at closing from them. What else? What are some other things? I'll kick another one out there. When I gave you my keys to being a rock star agent, I said, know your forms. So use the appropriate forms, right? Know what they are so that you can use them appropriately. What else?
Hello, is anybody on this on this Zoom call? What else? Hello.
I think I'm the only one who had my coffee this morning, Sharon.
Okay. I want to hear from some other people that I've heard. I don't want to call out some names and then they realize I called and they're not on. So what are some other things that y'all might need to know and stay on top of? I had one agent that told me that they forgot they were supposed to schedule the inspection and it was 3 weeks out. So I'm hoping that everybody that's not answering know those things.
Is everybody on spring break? Is that what's going on here?
Nope, no spring break.
Hey Jack, yeah, because I'm about to ask some people to show me some faces just so I know the PC program is in effect.
Did you say that was Jackie? Jackie, did you have a comment? Did you
No,
have
it was Jack.
No, I just let you know I've been here the whole time, just listening, trying to learn, so.
Okay.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I
Well,
will say
Sharon,
thank you, Jack, for showing me your face. Jack showed up. He was one of the first ones that showed up this morning.
Okay, then Jack. As
Sharon,
y'all
just to
Brooklyn in
let
charge, y'all know I'm looking.
Sharon, just to let you know, this is Laura, and I am actually sitting in my full-time job office, so I can't show because I'm
I
in a
know you
federal
can,
building.
Laura.
Okay.
Okay.
Did I have somebody who was going to chime in? How about this one? Know some of the pitfalls and avoid them. And Sharon just mentioned one. An agent didn't know that they were supposed to schedule an inspection. So number one, you got to know the process, right? Which is what we're talking about here this morning. So know the process. And one of the things to keep you on track with making sure things get scheduled is having that checklist. Having your system, your checklist is a system. And that's part of your overall closing system, right? So another pitfall, we've already mentioned this, is one of the pitfalls is not communicating. So you can't say that I didn't know, and you got to talk to people. You got to talk to people throughout the transaction. How about this one, guys? One of the things to help us stay on track. What about your attitude? Having a winning attitude. So remember I said, be the problem solver, be the go-to resource. Here's one of the pitfalls that may cause a snag in having a smooth closing process and, getting across the finish line, which is, closing on time. The agent on the other side of the transaction is not holding up their end of the bargain. Now, I don't know, some of you may not have run into that yet, but trust me, as you continue in this business, you will run into that. And sometimes I hear agents say, well, that's not my job. That's what they're supposed to do. So how do we handle that? So do we sit back and just say that's not my job and, watch someone handle it or not? And what kind
We
of
need to take responsibility and make sure that our customer is happy, whichever side you're on.
whichever side. And sometimes, thank you for that, Jack. Sometimes that requires us stepping up in doing something so that we can cross the finish line and so that we can provide that service for our client, even if one of the other players is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? Because if you deliver that exceptional service, your client's going to remember that. Because whether the other person isn't doing it or not, remember whose fault it's going to be in the eyes of your client or your customer, right?
So I have a question. If you're not getting much from the agent assisting you in a transaction, is it okay to reach out to that client, possibly their client?
No.
It's not. So what do you do with if they aren't they're not helping, the other agent isn't helping with the process, and you're more active in trying to get the process moved along? Like, what do you do on your side without causing an issue?
Well, it's already an issue if you're not communicating, right?
Yes.
And we don't want to reach out directly to their client, just as we don't want them reaching out directly to our client. So as a last resort, if you've tried everything in terms of reaching out to them and they're non-responsive, we're going to have a big conversation.
Okay, so I would just reach out to their BIC.
I would reach out to your BIC first.
Okay.
And Sharon can step in if she would like to say something other than what I'm saying. Sometimes a BIC to BIC conversation is better. Because here's the thing. Now, as a BIC, and Sharon can attest to this, when you get a call from your BIC, agents tend to pay attention. Whereas if it's just another agent, they may just, keep letting that go, which is what you're describing. Sharon, do you want to jump in, and would you instruct your agents to do something other than what I've said? Because I don't want to.
Absolutely not. I would definitely want them to reach out to me first so we can find avenues in order to resolve the problem. And a lot of times when we put the broken charge involved, a lot of times if you copy me on stuff, they will start to pick up. And just so everybody know, I don't know, I missed the introduction, but Leah is actively a broker in charge. She used to be my broker in charge. So yeah, I've learned from the best at doing this. So definitely what she's telling you, I would recommend that you do.
I didn't give them a big intro, Sharon. I didn't tell them how far we go back.
Yeah, you need to tell them so that way they know why I asked you to teach this class, because you're also an instructor and have taught many of classes, all of my post-licensing classes for me. Thank God. So yes, she's well versed in, and I agree totally with what you're saying.
Thank you, Sharon. And I'm sorry, I missed the young lady that asked the question. What is your name?
Latasha.
Latasha. Thank you for that question. Did that answer that for you?
Yes. To sum it all up, any issues I have from the other side, go straight to Sharon.
Yeah. And here's one other thing. Remember I mentioned that earlier that this is kind of like the Wild Wild West. And one of the complaints that I get from agents is other agents being less responsive than they even are when we're not in the type market that we're in right now. So for whatever reason, this current market is causing agents to behave poorly. So I feel your pain with that. But yeah, that would be your best course of action. Do we have any other questions? Thank you again.
The only thing I would assume is you would want us to follow up any phone call with an email or something written. So if I did have to go to Sharon, I've got a timeline to take to her.
Absolutely. Here's what I share with agents. You want to document everything because you want to cover your assets. Now, I prefer, so you can have a phone conversation. I would like for you to follow up with an email. And I know that we do a lot of texting too. I prefer the email to the text. And maybe you can call me old school. And here's what I want you to remember. With regard to any real estate transaction that you're involved in, and thank you for bringing this up, Jack, he who has the biggest file wins in a court of law, if we have to go there, or before the real estate commission. Your broker in charge cannot defend something if they don't have the information, okay? Well, when we get that little brown envelope in the mail, first thing I'm gonna do is go to my agent and say what happened, and I'm gonna need all the documentation, and I'm gonna need a timeline. So it's better for you to already have that than to have to try to fabricate it. You know, it's kind of like if you have to go to the IRS, you need to already have the receipts before that audit so that you don't have to kind of piece this thing together. We move really quickly, things move fast. However, you need to document the entire transaction. And all of that is part of your transaction file, which we know that we have to keep for 3 years to satisfy, the real estate commission. So those text messages, those emails, whatever communications, that's all part of your transaction file, and you need to have that. So excellent point, Jack. Thank you for that. Any other questions around that? I'm glad y'all are engaging. Thank you so much. Any other pitfalls that you can think of that we want to? So this is kind of like your objection handlers when you are doing your lead generation. You want to know the process and know potential roadblocks that you can run into so that you can avoid those. If you meet it head on or you meet it before it actually comes up, then it's not an issue.
Make sure your measurements are correct.
Yes, make sure your measurements are correct. Absolutely, that's a good one. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that you all are well versed in how to do that, right? You got the little yellow book from the Real Estate Commission and you know the process, right? Yeah. What else? Anything else? How about your communication with the lender? How do you make sure that things are tracking? I can remember some years ago, I actually had 2 transactions in play at the same time. They were both new construction, both with the same builder and both with the same lender, because that particular lender was one of this builder's preferreds. And one of my clients was doing a VA loan and the other client was doing USDA. And I was checking in with this lender weekly to make sure that everything was tracking. And on my check-in, it was about 10 days out from both of the closings because they were closing around the same time. All along, this lender was telling me that everything was good. We were on track to close as scheduled. Well, when I made this last check-in, she said to me, yeah, I'm so glad you called because so the client that was doing a USDA loan, this person had not even submitted it to USDA. And I don't know how many of you have ever done a USDA loan. Oftentimes they're behind. And this was, we were supposed to close in September, and especially during that time of year, they tend to get behind. So at this time, they were running about 30 days behind, and it had not even been submitted to them. And guess what happened about 2 days later? we had a government shutdown. So guess what that meant? So in addition to already being 30 days behind, there was no way we were going to be able to close on time, even though this lender had been telling me all along that all systems were go. Now, needless to say, I never worked with that particular lender again. Neither one of my loans closed on time. And it was all because of that person. So what do you do? And this is just real world, y'all. What do you do when that happens? So maybe we should go back to what Jack said. We need some receipts. We need some written proof that yes, this has taken place versus just word of mouth, right? Because we can't have our folks out here homeless or, living out of a hotel or trailer or whatever, because I've had clients that have had to do that because of, And remember I said, oh, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to say, in addition, that's just our fiduciary duty as a buyer's agent to make sure we're trying to stay on top of it. Even if we have lenders who don't want to really respond to us, I continue to email them anyway. So that way my buyer know that I'm constantly trying to communicate with them. Even if they say, I haven't heard from them. Well, yep, I sent that email out 2 weeks ago. I got no response. I sent another one out. So that way they know we're doing our duty as their buyer's agent.
Absolutely. Yep. That paper trail.
Absolutely.
Document, right?
Right.
Very good. So I have on the screen a listing agent checklist. And this is just a generic checklist. And I'm sure that Sharon and Jessica have probably shared, a more detailed checklist with you. And this isn't a command class. However, we know that we can manage this, through our opportunities in command in terms of our checklist. Most of these points we've already talked about in terms of making sure that we get inspections scheduled. However, whatever those inspections are, whether it's just the home inspection or termite, whatever it is that your client has determined that, I'm jealous. Can I get a virtual hug?
You saw me come in and get my morning hug.
Yes. Did you hear me say I'm jealous?
Of which one of us?
That I didn't get a hug.
Sharon's a good hugger.
Yes.
No.
Hi, everybody. I'll get out of here.
Sorry.
I'm part of the family too. Y'all just don't know it yet.
She is.
Okay, so making sure that any inspections, surveys, whatever it is needs to be ordered, is done within the appropriate time. Written confirmation on loan approval. Once you've had those inspections, negotiate repairs or whatever needs to happen, based on that. Now, this is one of the things that you're going to check in with the lender on, making sure that the appraisal has been scheduled. That's out of your hands. However, you need to stay on top of it. Making sure that the closing is scheduled, the actual settlement meeting is on the books with the closing attorney, final walkthrough with your buyer, getting that scheduled and making sure you conduct that. And here's another thing, if you're going to have, if you and your buyer client have negotiated repairs, making sure that don't wait till the morning of closing to go to do the walkthrough. You want to make sure prior to that those repairs have been performed and, that everything according to the contract has been, done. So that if there are any issues with that, you can address that prior to actually getting to the closing table, because that could be another hiccup. Making sure that the buyer has the closing disclosure, you review that with them and make sure that things are in the right place, that your client's getting the appropriate credits, paying for whatever it is that they've agreed to pay for. If your, seller is making a contribution, for example. And remember I said that you need to know your forms so that you can explain them and also be able to answer questions about them. Same thing with, you need to be able to know how to read that closing disclosure so that you can make sure that the numbers are accurate, that your client's getting appropriate credit where necessary. And, if it's not, reaching out to the attorney saying, hey, we need to make a correction here. Any questions about any of this that we've talked about so far?
Am I sending an email to the buyer client as each one of these steps progress to the next step and are completed?
I think that it's a good practice. So remember, we said over communicate. I think it is a good practice to give your clients at a minimum weekly updates on those things that you're doing to move this along. So was that Jack that asked that question?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So remember I said once a week at a minimum. It could be more frequent than that. Okay. And Sharon mentioned, I want to email my clients to show that I'm doing my due diligence as the agent in terms of communicating with the lender or whoever the other players are that we need to be in communication with. So excellent question, Jack. And yes, you're absolutely correct. Any other questions on checklist items that we've talked about?
This is kind of not a question, but just a thought, Leah, because I know, especially with you doing business in another state as well as knowing the business here.
Yeah.
We are dealing a lot with this new thing with this crazy market called appraisal addendums.
Yeah.
And a lot of our brand new agents may not even realize how this is crazy that we're even having to do it, but based on this market. So what does your office do? Does your office do appraisal addendums, or is that something that y'all don't even?
I said that because I love North Carolina in terms of real estate practice, because Georgia has about $1 trillion. I'm gonna send you an index, Sharon,
Okay.
of all the forms that Georgia has, and literally there's hundreds. You can really get lost in the sauce with those forms. There are, they do have some that address that. What typically happens there is it is addressed in the body of the contract as a special stipulation.
Oh, okay.
So in Georgia, in my opinion, agents have a little more leeway than we do here in North Carolina, because there's a section in there where you can write in special stips. Now there's some special stips that are already provided that they should use that are written by attorneys, but they don't always do that. Oftentimes they're kind of just, doing their own thing.
Right.
And I'm sure you're bringing this up because appraisals are an issue. Now, I actually had a conversation with an agent just last night who was representing a buyer, and the buyer is getting a VA loan. First of all, let's start with, they actually were actually able to get under contract with a VA loan, because as we know, if you get an FHA or a VA loan, I'm sorry, but your buyers are gonna have a hard time getting a property under contract. So
Exactly.
not only are they under contract getting a VA loan, she was telling me that the appraisal came back. And I was waiting for her to tell me how much the appraisal came back below the contract sales price. That's not what happened.
Mm-mm.
It came back 20,000 above the contract sales price. I was like, what?
Right.
Because it's been the exact opposite. You know,
And it's gonna be, and I keep telling everybody, my agents here, that the market is going to self-correct itself, and some of those homes that sold for a significant amount over the asking price, over the comp price, will get ready to sell their home, and it might not sell for what they purchased it for.
absolutely. You are absolutely right, Sharon. There is going to be a correction, and all these listing agents and who are out here, excuse me, y'all. Y'all
Overcharging.
have to get to know me a little bit better.
Can
But
she
who are
be
out here
honest?
acting a fool, your time is gonna come, because I remember, and Sharon does too, we were in a market where you couldn't get nobody to buy a house.
Mm-mm.
Sellers begging, what do you need? What you want me to do? So yeah, tables are gonna turn.
Yes,
Just
they
wait,
are.
because we all know that real estate is cyclical, right?
Right.
So y'all have your fun now and keep acting a fool until it
Yes.
comes back around.
That's right.
Now I said a lot, Sharon. I don't know if I even answered your question about the.
You did answer my question, because that is some of the things that a lot of my new agents are coming in, and because they're new, they're not, they feel like they don't even have a game in this fight. I mean, because they're trying to figure out how to guess the amount to offer.
Yeah.
And they get there and they said, we did all this and we still didn't get the offer. Well, that's because some people are just like using some other forms.
Yeah.
And we do have both those forms, the sight unseen and the appraisal addendums available.
Yeah.
But you got to understand those documents before you can present them.
Absolutely. You got to understand it before you present them.
Mhm.
Because Sharon mentioned your fiduciary responsibility. You've got to protect your clients at all times. That part's on you. So if you don't know the rules of engagement, know your forms and all of that, you can't really do that effectively, can you? No. You can't. And I do want to say this about this market we're in, and as you're beginning your business in this market, it may seem like little consolation to you now. Think of all the wonderful things that you're learning right now that are going to help you as you move forward in your business. And as Sharon mentioned, as the market, corrects itself and we get back to maybe what we call more normal, you'll be ahead of the game because of the experiences that you're having now. You're really able to up your negotiation skills right now because you're really having to use those muscles right now. You really have to be strategic in order to just get, a property under contract, right? Yeah.
Right.
What else we got? What other questions do we have about this closing process? I have that listing agent checklist up there, and I mentioned earlier that it's heavier on the buyer side in terms of what needs to be done than on the seller. I mean, with your seller, basically, you got to make sure that the seller is completing any repairs that they agreed to, and that when they move out of the house, that they leaving everything that needs to be in there. And that may sound like a joke, but it's not.
Refrigerator gone, the wash and dryer gone.
Right.
Yep.
Make sure that they stick with, you know, what's in the contract. I've had sellers who, I actually had a seller, and this was back during a short sale market, where not only did they take the refrigerator, they took the built-in microwave, they took the dishwasher. I mean, all of the fixtures. I'm like, you know, when I went in there, I said, "Hey, what's going on here?" Well, that was mine. Now, remember, I said this was in a short sale market. So, number one, you have to understand what a fixture is and what's supposed to stay, and also stick with the contract. But the seller said, she said, "Oh, that's mine." I said, "Well, yeah, that's yours. Now remember, you ain't paid on this house in almost a year," which is why we're in the shape that we're in. And what are you gonna do with that dishwasher? Where are you gonna put it? And that built-in microwave. So yeah, making sure that you know, they leave what they're supposed to, making sure they take out what they're supposed to, that they're not leaving a bunch of trash, that they leave the property in a condition that it is supposed to be in according to the contract. Making sure that your seller gets to the closing attorney to, you know, sign the deed and lien waiver. Because that's really all your seller is doing, unless, and you're really not seeing this in this market, where a seller has to bring a check to closing. So if that were the case, making sure that your seller, you know, delivered the funds to the attorney as appropriate in the closing. Questions about the seller side of closing the transaction?
Not a question, but definitely a statement that if you're not doing your fiduciary duty, you might be the one bringing a check to the closing table.
Yes, you might
So
be.
yes, make sure you're doing everything you can, because if they've agreed to something and there's not been a proper communication and they get to the closing table, you may have to share that commission check with somebody.
Mhm. And once you do that, I'm full of stories, y'all. So y'all might just want to say, "I wish this girl would shut up." I will share with y'all my very first closing my very first closing. My very first closing was also my very first listing. And remember, I said this was way back in the olden days. And this is why it's important to know the process, know your forms, to know what you're doing.
Mhm.
So when I actually got this listing, I was on floor duty that day, and I got a call. And so I asked one of the seasoned agents in my office at that time to accompany me, because I was scared and I didn't know what I was doing. So this seasoned agent that agreed to accompany me, his name was Jerry. He was a part-time firefighter and a part-time real estate agent. He said, "Yeah, I'll go with you." So Jerry went with me to the listing appointment. I let Jerry do all the talking. I just sat next to him and I just smiled and nodded and agreed with everything he said. Even the part where he told the seller that they were going to walk away from the closing table with approximately $1,700. Now, I will tell you that back then, things didn't move as quickly as they do now in terms of, you know, the way we close a transaction and just the way we operate, period. So we had a close that we were scheduled to close on a Friday. I showed up for the closing. I was at the closing table, and the attorney looked across the table at my sellers and said, "Hey, where's your check for $1,700? Jerry wasn't at the closing table with Leah that day. Even though Jerry was the one who told them they were going to get a check for $1,700. It was my listing, and I smiled and nodded and agreed with him. And sitting at that closing table that Friday afternoon, who was they mad at? They weren't mad at Jerry, they were mad at me. And so we had what we call a dry closing. We did all the paperwork, but there was no transfer of funds. Remember I said this was on a Friday afternoon? Y'all don't schedule your closing on Fridays. Okay, if you're gonna do it on Friday, do it in the morning. But if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong if you schedule a closing on a Friday afternoon. So they went home so they could talk about it and figure out what they were going to do about this $1,700, which, you know, they were not planning to have to contribute. Guess who made a contribution to that? Now, I didn't pay the whole $1,700. I paid half of it. Remember I said this was my first closing, and I went home that Friday almost in tears, and I told my husband, I don't think I want to do this. I don't think this is for me. So there's several nuggets for you to take out of that. Here's the big one. You need to know what you're doing and not rely on Jerry like Leah did, because in the long run, it's going to cost you money and potentially cost you your reputation. And if it gets really bad, it could cost you your entire career. Right? Yeah.
That part.
That part. Yep. Mm-hmm. What else we got? So any other questions about the process, the closing process, and what we need to do and what we need to be aware of? If we don't have any more questions about that, I want to move on and talk about what happens after we close. So
Leah, just quickly, this is Laura, and now I'm scared. Which one of y'all are going to the closing table with me?
Well, that was not intended to incite. So Sharon, you already know this. Laura has her first closing coming up in June.
Mm-hmm.
So congratulations on that.
Yes.
Sharon's going, I don't know if she'll be at the closing table with you. Sharon's going to guide you throughout this process and make sure that everything is as it should be. And the purpose of and that was a true story, y'all.
Yes.
That was,
I know, and that's why I'm scared.
I've given away money too.
Yeah.
And
Well, the purpose of it is to inform you so that you don't make the same mistake that I did.
Right.
So now that you're aware, Laura, you are going to be
well informed, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And you won't call me at the table, Laura, and say, what do I do, Sharon? Because I'm here and they've said some stuff that I don't even know about.
No, I'm taking you to the table with me, so I won't have to call you.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Here's the really big thing, Laura. So with your checklist, you're going to have these conversations with Sharon before you get to the closing table. That's because right. You want to take care of everything. Because once we get to the table, I don't want to say it's over, but I mean, we want to make sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. Everything should be done by that point. So,
and another thing is nothing more making you sweat than for your clients who have relied on you to give them this expert information to buy a house, and you're sitting at the table and you can't explain to them why something is happening. And, you know, a lot of them will say, oh yeah, the other person. Well, a lot of times it's you. Because if you haven't been communicating, you haven't stayed on top of things, you didn't look at your checklist, what are the things I need, then you're sitting at the table and the attorney is looking at you like, I don't have all day because I have another closing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So remember, I started this out with a quote, and that quote, I'm going to repeat it for those of you who are not on the call yet. Know what you want to accomplish and focus on the process rather than the outcome. Here's where agents get in trouble. When it relates, if you relate this quote to closing, we're going to say the outcome is you getting a check. If you're focused on the process, which is what we've been talking about this morning, and you've got your checklist in hand and you are over communicating as we've stated all morning, then you're going to be fine. If all you're focused on is getting your check, then that's where you're going to have a problem.
Mhm.
So you've heard, I'm sure you've heard people say, don't have commission breath. Well, this kind of falls into that. And this is something that I share with agents as I'm coaching and training them, and that is never lead with money. Now, we all got into this business. We don't do this just for kicks. This is how we earn a living. This is how we provide for our families. However, when you lead with money, it's going to cause you to derail. It's going to cause you to not have a great business because your focus is not on your client, which is where it should be. Because if you go back to what Sharon said in that, with that fiduciary, that is of the utmost importance. You have been hired to represent someone else, and that fiduciary responsibility says that you've got to put their best interest above your own. So if you're doing that, that means that you're not making decisions based on the car note you got to pay in 2 weeks or the credit card bill that you got to pay in 2 weeks. It's based on what is best for your client.
That's right.
Mhm. And I know I said, I used a lot of words and I said a lot. It's really quite simple. I can't stress enough how important the checklist is, knowing the process, and also as you're learning the process, relying upon, your BIC. And I'm gonna say, here's one of the things that as you get to know Leah, I just give it to you straight, no chaser, okay? Be careful who you take advice from. So just like I told you, I took Jerry on that listing. He was a seasoned agent. Jerry caused me to have to write a check by me relying on him. Be careful who you take advice from. Because oftentimes people who purport to know, they don't know. Your BIC is going to be the best person, initially. And they can, direct you to some people who also give sound advice. Because sometimes it sounds good, but it ain't quite right. Ain't that right, Sharon?
Yes, and because my license is what I'm relying on to pay my bills, I would definitely prefer. That's why sometimes I cringe when we have a private page, Leah, that I know you've seen because you're on it now, and they ask questions to people, and people answer the questions, and I say to myself, "Wow, they asked that question to them versus me." Because I'm going to be the person that ultimately will have to defend that conversation you had with someone that has no fight in the game other than giving you advice on what they've been doing. What if it's been wrong the whole time?
Mm-hmm. And
they're telling me now that it's been wrong, and I've had to go talk to them and say, that's not how we do.
Right. Yeah.
So yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's my job. Leah, that's her job. That's what she's doing, is to inform you of what is the right way to do it, not a way that helps you to get the job done, but the right way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Start your business how you want to run your business and how you ultimately want to end your business. And that is learning the right way and employing the right way. We got to keep the bar up here versus down here, which is what some people tend to do. Take the time to get informed, stay informed and up to date. Because this is an exciting business, and the reasons that we get into this business because of unlimited opportunity, unlimited income earning potential, flexibility in your schedule. There are a lot of great reasons that we get into this business. However, we've got to focus on the right things so that we can, stay in business and have a successful and thriving business, right? And I'm gonna give y'all, this ain't got, this other little nugget that I'm getting ready to give y'all ain't got nothing to do with the closing process, but I'm gonna say this here. So I just mentioned that one of the reasons that we get into this business, other than the unlimited income earning potential, is because we get to make our own schedule because of the flexibility. Don't flex your way out of the business, because being able to make your own schedule means you make it, and it's got to include the essential elements of building a business.
Right.
I had a conversation with an agent a couple of years ago, and she said to me, Leah, you just don't understand. Real estate isn't a job where you get a regular paycheck. And I said, no, my dear, you're the one who doesn't understand. You don't get a regular paycheck because you don't do regular work.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh my goodness, that's a clap.
So that's what I mean when I say don't flex your way out of the business before you really get started. Okay.
Right.
So I'm gonna come back one of these days when Sharon lets me, and I'm gonna talk to y'all about time blocking, because that is that's essential.
That's key.
Yep, to
Key.
being able to do all of this. Laura, do you feel better?
Look, she
I'm working on it, I guess. Yeah. My situation with this young lady is just so very different than I ever imagined it to be. She did new construction sight unseen from the West Coast, and so we've done a lot of, or I feel like I've done a lot of things that are unconventional as a new agent. You never think your first client is going to be on the West Coast. So I've just been extra careful, because I know that she put a lot of trust and faith in building a home that she has never been here before. So it's just been, this one has been somewhat stressful. So I think I may just be overreacting, because I'm very OCD about my paperwork, but it's just been, yeah, it's different. It's been different.
Mm-hmm. And I certainly understand that. That is considered unconventional. Believe it or not, it wasn't my first transaction, but I've done a new construction sight unseen. My client never stepped foot in the house until well after they closed on the property.
Well, I'm meeting her at 2:00 today for the first time. We've been working together since September. So I get to see her for the first time today, and then tomorrow we do our pre-construction walkthrough. So it's just like boom, 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 everything is happening. So yeah, I'm panicking, but it's all good. I have your I see your face, and I know how to find you, and I know where she.
Yep. Okay. Well, remember this part, and I understand that this can be unnerving because it is a bit unconventional. Just remember to keep it right here as far as how you're feeling about this. And it sounds like you're very conscientious in terms of, as you stated, your paperwork and all of that, and documenting this entire process. And I know that you'll be fine, and you'll be doing the happy dance as you walk away from the closing table with a successful close. So
thank you, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But yeah, Sharon obviously is a resource because she's your broker in charge. And like you said, yeah, you know how to reach me. If I can be of assistance to any of you, then you can consider me a resource as well. And I think that I'm BIC approved. I'm approved by your BIC.
I think she is BIC approved. She got the stamp, the seal of approval. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. All right, so are y'all ready to move on and just spend a little bit of time talking about what to do after the closing, and so that you can continue to win business?
Yes.
All right, very good.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Nice, strong, robust yes, George.
Yes.
How many of you are employing a, how many of you, I'm gonna stop the screen share
Okay.
for now. Are you doing any, well, one of you raised your hand and said you've already had a closing. So for those of you who have put your systems in place, are you requesting?
Reviews.
Yes, thank you, Sharon, because my brain just got stuck. Yes, thank you. So what's the best time to ask for reviews and also to ask for referrals? What's the best time to do that?
For me, it's right at almost at the table, closing table. I'm like, hey, while you waiting, sign this here, fill this out.
Exactly. And why is that, Sharon? It's because everybody's pretty much in a good mood at that point, right?
Right.
We've made it, and that thing is successful. So you want to get it while they're in a good mood. So that's the time to ask for. And also here, with regard to the referrals, that's when it's top of mind for them.
Mm-hmm.
You want to ask throughout the process
Mm-hmm.
for referrals, and in particular, at closing, because everybody's in a good mood. And so you all have seen the NAR statistics, which I don't have in front of me, so I'm not going to be able to give you exact numbers, but I can give you the gist of it. And that is that most consumers would do business with the agent that they use in their current real estate transaction again. However, the reality is that doesn't happen. And I think we all know why it doesn't happen. Can somebody say it for me?
We don't stay in touch.
We don't stay in touch. So after we get our check, we're out of there, right?
Right.
So how do we combat that? What should we do? Because this is all that, Gary's been talking about this for a few years now. They really drilled down on it, in the last, 18 months or so, staying in touch with your database. Right?
Right.
So I, just to use a personal example, I had a closing in, I'm trying to think of when it was. This is 2021, right? It was towards the end of 2020. Now, this was a gentleman that was in a pre-licensing class of mine, probably about 7 years ago, just out of the blue. Now I'm telling on myself here too, y'all. Out of the blue, called me up and said, "Hey, Miss Leah, I'm ready to buy my house. I told you that whenever I did, I was gonna contact you." Now I hadn't talked to this gentleman in years. I'm friends with him on Facebook, and I do, when he posts stuff about his kids and stuff like that, I communicate with him in that way. But in terms of me actually, being in consistent communication with him the way I should have, I didn't do it. However, I just got lucky because, I guess I made that kind of impression upon him. Most of the time that doesn't happen, right?
Right.
So how do we overcome that? What should we be doing in order to win? So we're asking for those reviews and the referrals at closing when people are in a good mood. How many of us are reaching out to our buyers and sellers after the closing? So your buyer, for example, how are things going in your new home? How often should we do that?
So Leah, for me, I think my plan with this one is because she's come from so far, I'm probably gonna check in with her at least every 30 days because she's gonna need more than your average Raleigh client, right? She's gonna need to find referrals for doctors and dentists and pharmacies and banks and things like that. So I'm going to do a 30-day checkup with her as she gets settled in to make sure. I started that today, and we're going to drive around so that she can see where she's at and just kind of do that just to give her that Southern appeal and charm that we have, because she doesn't know about it.
Absolutely. Laura, can I plus that a little bit?
Yes, ma'am.
So I would definitely do that. And I wouldn't wait 30 days for the first check-in. The first check-in I would do after 3 days. And then I would check in again after another week.
Okay.
Because you want to make sure that when it's still top of mind, when it's still hot, you want to still stay in contact with them. Okay. And
okay.
Here's the other way that I would plus this. This is not just for Laura. This is for everyone that's on the call.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and have your vendor list ready.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. We know that, and you've heard, I'm sure you've heard a lot of talk about this. Real estate is local, and you want to get hyper local, and you are the market expert. You know everything about the market that you service.
Mm-hmm.
So all the things that Laura mentioned, doctors, dentists, pharmacies, whatever, you need to compile your list. These are people that you want to be in relationship with for a couple things, so that you can provide this as a resource to your clients, and also for business, for building your business, because there should be some reciprocity there in terms of I give you business and you give me business, right?
Right.
What are the best Italian restaurants? What's the best Mexican restaurant? Or just think of all the things that we like to do.
Mm-hmm.
And you have your go-to resource. You've already compiled that. And I would continuously look at it and update it so that you can provide that. Here's the thing too. You most certainly want to provide that for people who are moving from out of town. It's also good to have that for people who are moving locally, because even if I'm local, there's some things that, some resources that I may not be aware of that, someone may be able to enlighten me about, in terms of a service provider. So I think that you are definitely on the right track, Laura. That's an excellent idea. And as I said, that's excellent for everyone. This is all part of you providing exceptional service and staying in relationship with your clients after you've closed the transaction, so that they'll come back to you again and again, and also so that they will send their family and friends to you. What else?
I'm gonna speak just because I got the experience and maybe others don't. I definitely, because I'm using the Keller Williams system and KW Command, I set up the anniversary date for mine. I make sure I set them up on that. If I have collected, like, sometimes we collect their birthdays and stuff. I put that in my calendar, so that way I know touch bases, not just with my clients, but if they have kids. Someone taught me when I got into the business, remember everybody, because you stay on top of them when they think about buying or selling, or someone buying and selling, they think about you because you stay in front of them all the time.
Absolutely. So here's another little golden nugget that I want to share with you guys. And Sharon just made an excellent point. So one of the other things that I absolutely love in addition to time blocking, I love business planning. And so there are several agents that I coach, and one of the things that I coach them to, so what Sharon just described is a system. So she set up smart plans, which, Command makes easy. When you're doing your annual business plan, guys, you should, there's a template where you should set up your SMART plan for the year in terms of how you're going to communicate with your people. So you should know what you're going to do in January, February, and each month of the year. So you're going to have the anniversary of when they closed on the property, the birthdays of that individual and each person in their family. One of the things that I've always done, and I think Sharon does this too, one of my touches in January is to send them a copy of their settlement statement, because they're going to need that for their taxes. And even though they've gotten a copy of it, folks don't know what they did with it. But it's just another opportunity for you to reach out and touch them and to provide value to them. So plan out what you're going to do for the entire year. And then each month, all you have to do is execute. You know, the birthday cards you're sending out in January, you know, the anniversaries of the purchase that you're reaching out for, and anything else that, if you're having any pop buys that you're going to do, any client events that you're going to do, whatever it is, you've already planned that out so that all you have to do is just get up every day and execute that plan your work and work your plan. So here's one of the things that I'd like to challenge you all with. And I would challenge you with setting up a SMART plan, a post-closing SMART plan. And I'd be happy to review it with you and, offer, just my 2 cents if you'd like. And that way, for these mini closings that you're going to have, you've already got it set up for what you're going to do. That what your touchy is going to be after the first 3 days, after the, first week, that first 30 days, and then thereafter. Okay. How about sending them a handwritten note, thanking them for, doing business with you? Now, a lot of people get away from the handwritten notes, but those are golden in terms of your business and winning people over. What are some other things that you can do post-closing? So let me ask you this before I move forward. Who's going to take me up on this challenge to create your post-closing SMART plan and share it with Leah?
I am.
Okay, Sharon, love it. Anybody else? Jack, are you raising your hand? Very good.
I will. George will.
All right, very good. So I'm gonna put my email address in the chat. I mean, y'all know how to find me anyway, but I'll put it in the chat anyway so that y'all have it. It's real easy. My name at kw.com. What about or tell me, what about a thank you letter to the affiliates, the vendors who have participated in the transaction?
That's a good one.
As I'm throwing ideas out there, can you guys think of anything? Here's another one. So thank you letter to the affiliate. How about, and it could be a note, how about to that co-broke agent, the co-op, the agent on the other side of the transaction? Now,
Absolutely.
we can take this a step further too with that. I mean, you can do it. That could be the beginning of you nurturing a relationship where you can, in the future, add them to your profit share tree. Sending that co-op agent a note, inviting them to trainings in your market center or just, that the region is putting on.
That's right.
So when we talk about winning future business, we want to win future business with buyer and seller clients, and also with the other elements of our business, meaning growing profit share, which I hope everybody on this call is raising their hand saying, I want to opt in. Right? Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question, Leah.
Yes.
I've heard a couple different suggestions on the closing gift, not giving it at the closing, giving it 2 weeks later, and that's one of your touches after it's over. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I like it. I think that that's great. I think it's a matter of personal preference, and I think that can work really well. It does give an opportunity for you to, continue to nurture that relationship after the closing, and it cuts down on them kind of forgetting about you. So I like it.
Mhm.
Yeah, welcome. So glad to have you.
What else we got?
I definitely think it's good, especially if they have a housewarming party and you attend that housewarming party. Maybe bring a gift then if you didn't be after that. Definitely, that's something I would do.
I like that, Sharon. Yeah. And when we talk about, Sharon mentioned housewarming party. Don't let cost. You can partner with some of these affiliates and vendors to help leverage the cost of that, and it doesn't have to be extravagant. People just get excited about the fact that you thought enough of them to do something like that, right?
That's right.
So let's say that you host that housewarming party and you actually attend that housewarming party. And I know this is a little bit different right now because of COVID, but we can still get creative and do some things, that would work to give you an opportunity to meet some of these friends and families. We can do drive-bys. What are some other thoughts and ideas that you have about continuing to forge that relationship?
I have a quick question.
Yeah. Who am I talking to?
This is Michelle Licklider.
Hi,
Hey,
Michelle.
Michelle.
And let me tell you, Sharon is the best. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, she is.
You guys were talking about the open house or having like a housewarming. How do you start that? Because I have a client, her new build is going to be done in July, and I would love to do something like that, but I never have, and I don't even know where to start.
You want me to go first?
I think
go
the
ahead.
best thing to do, Michelle, would be to say, hey, when you have if you're going to have a housewarming party, I would love to come, because that'll be your client's way of helping you. That whole thing we asked that Leah keeps mentioning about referrals and stuff like that. That's where she opens up, or that person will open up the gate for you to be able to meet some of the people that she knows and give your business card to and have that conversation. You just kind of, there because they're excited. And I mean, you having a housewarming party of maybe a month or so later or whenever, and you kind of come in, bring a vendor, one of your preferred lenders that can be there to talk to people. That's a great opportunity. She gets to show her house. She gets to let everybody know who helped her. You have someone there if someone has questions that you can't answer, because what can we not do is try to be a lender and answer questions about loans that we don't know about. And it's a win-win for everyone. I think I'm gonna do that.
Love it. I'm definitely going to do this.
And if you can fit it into your budget, have some little takeaway that you can leave with them.
Yes.
That's branded to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
What ideas do you have for that?
Well,
go buy some cups. Go buy some. Listen, get some pens. Get some things where they can write some notes to, whatever. Get notepads. Do whatever you got to do.
I got it. Okay. Well, thank you both for that.
Absolutely.
It's a great idea.
Yes.
And if they're not planning on having a housewarming party, you plan it.
Okay. I will. I will
No,
step up.
seriously, you plan it for them, and whoever your vendor, for example, the lender is partnering with you. They're partnering in the cost of it also to make it more economical. So yeah,
Okay. Well, thank you guys so much.
absolutely.
That's an idea for me because I had said it and I thought it was nice, but I think I'm gonna do it myself.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're in, I mean, you being in control of it does a couple things. One, you're able to provide that value and service to your client post closing. And also you being in control of it. Hey, you're sending out the invitations. That gives you the list right there.
Oh my
That's
gosh, I
right.
didn't bring that angle. So that's even better.
Yeah. So.
I mean, because it's all about building your business, and what great better way to lead gen than to create something that you can stand in front of people and give them an opportunity, and the lender is going to appreciate it because he or she is lead genning as well, and they can help with the cost of it. Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm gonna have a
Yeah.
couple of them this year.
Yeah. There's something that when I said even, with COVID safety, I mean, you guys have done it some in the market center. I've seen several agents, when I mentioned you can do drive-bys, one agent in particular, and this is just an idea, partnered with a lender. They did, there's a barbecue restaurant, and they did a box lunch. And this was just a client appreciation type thing where they set up in the parking lot. And the clients drove through at a certain time period, and they were able to, they had a little swag bag with that agent's branded, whatever, I don't remember what they gave, but also, pick up a lunchbox. So there are many different ways. You just have to be creative in, how you execute. So I'm just going to open it up for any burning questions that you have. I hope, well, first of all, let me ask you guys this. Did you learn anything today?
Yeah, I did.
I did.
And
Yes, plenty,
I'm gonna cry if y'all say no. I just want to know.
plenty.
I certainly did.
Well, good. So here's one of my favorite parts of class, and that is, what are your takeaways? What are your ahas? Specifically, give me one thing that you learned today or that you were refreshed on that you're going to take and use in your business.
Don't take the fireman for his word. Take your bit.
Absolutely.
That's a good one.
Follow your checklist religiously.
Yep.
Yes.
I think focusing on the process was a big thing to hit on me.
Yes, focus on the process. Very good. What else? These are all great.
Communicating, continue to over communicate.
Absolutely. We can never communicate too much, right?
Right.
And I think adding the BIC on your communication, because I haven't been doing that. So that was a big aha for me, is I need to actually stuff.
That's the biggest flex there is.
It is. If y'all only knew how many times I say, just put my name up there and copy me on it, and they'll call me back or text me back or email me back and say, oh my gosh, they're doing it. He's being cooperative. He's not being
It's almost
crazy.
instantaneous, isn't it,
Right,
Sharon?
because they're like, you didn't have to add the broker in charge to this. We're going to get it done. Why we got to have this? No, this is how we have to work. And they get it done.
Absolutely. That's a great one. Yeah. What else we got? Has everybody given me at least one aha or one takeaway?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Good. Any other burning questions that Sharon and I could answer for you before we close out today? No?
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for
One thing
having.
I would like to say is I so appreciate Leah and I've known each other since almost the beginning of this journey with Keller Williams. It'll be 13 years for me. I know it's a broken record, but I'm gonna keep saying it. 13 years for me come May the 8th, and she came right behind me. I mean, like, it seemed like a month or so later, we've been on this journey with Keller Williams, and we understand each other. And I felt, what better person to come in and talk to y'all about this process than someone that does the pre-licensing, does the post-licensing, does the CE, has been a broker in charge, been a realtor forever and a day, have the audacity to do it in 2 states. And it all started from her probably having a bad experience with buying one of her own homes and saying, if they can do it, I surely can increase and do a better job. And so I am thrilled. There's also this opportunity that I'm going to let everybody know. Those of y'all that are not or have not completed y'all post licensing, Leah has agreed to do it. It's a weekend class. I took every single one of my post-licensing class with her on the weekend. Why? Because I was working a full-time job. I had to pay my bills. And she obliged, and I got all of my post-licensing done through her. She's going to offer it for our office. And so I am super excited about it. And I think you've given me the dates. What's the first couple of days, the first section of date? I know we got 3 different times to do it.
Yeah. So the first, and I will just give this caveat, we haven't posted it to the commission yet, but so y'all are the first to know.
Right.
301 is going to be in April. The first weekend is the 10th and the 11th, then the 17th and 18th and 24th and 25th. Then 302 will be in May. We're going to go the first weekend in May, the 1st and 2nd, skip Mother's Day weekend because I'm going to be getting pampered that weekend.
Right.
And then we're going to go the 15th and 16th and finish up on the 22nd and 23rd. And Sharon is just passing this on. It will be published, posted, so you guys will get the information. And then 303 will be in June, the 5th and 6th, the 12th and 13th, and then we'll finish up the 26th and 27th. This will be, as Sharon said, a Saturday, Sunday class, and we'll run from 9 a.m. to 2 o'clock. So that, anybody who wants to get that knocked out can. But like I said, we will publish it and post it so that you guys, and give you the registration information and everything else, okay?
And I definitely want everyone who hasn't and can afford to do it to get on board to do it, because once you get that taken off, then it's not that you have so much more freedom, but I definitely don't have to micromanage everything that you're doing as much, because I'm hoping by that time you've learned enough through all these classes you're taking through PC and classes like tomorrow. And also I will be teaching tomorrow for some people that have missed some of our classes, our boot camp. I will be teaching on how to do listings. So this will coincide with what she just taught, how to do listings and understand those forms that everyone has so many problems when they're trying to do. Just like I had an agent call me 2 nights ago and he said, I've been kind of, slow jumping on board, but I got someone that just asked me about putting in an offer. Can you help me? It's 7:30 at night. I said, the answer is really no, because I teach this class. And he said, but I understand. And I said, so I need to see you on a Saturday class because I offer Saturday classes. And he said, I promise I'll be up there so y'all know I'm gonna be looking for him. So just make sure that y'all get on board. Thank you so much, Leah, for taking time out of your busy day, because you do have a busy life, to come in and teach the people that have come on to just absolutely learn how to do this process in the best way possible. Checklists, they work.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I look forward to coming back and spending some time with you guys in the very near future.
Yes.
And you all have a fantastic weekend.
All right. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you, Leah, Sharon. Thank you.
Hey, Jack.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.